Call this regular council meeting of the Village of Manan to order on March the 1st, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. at the Manan Community Center. And again, we don't have any pastor at this time, but Councillor Fitzsimmons has offered to do prayer for us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Heavenly Father. We thank you and praise you tonight, Lord God. Thank you for your goodness, your mercy, and your grace. Pray your wisdom upon us as we discuss these issues that we are facing and the choices that we have to make tonight, Lord God. We just thank you for this beautiful island that we get to live on, and we just give you the praise and the honor. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzsimmons. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We hope everyone had fared well during the high winds and the snowstorms, which have made traveling even here on our island difficult. Our hospitals and doctors have been very busy with very little thanks for a good job. Let's show our appreciation for our nurses and the people of all professions. A thank you means a lot to them. They don't hear it very often. Some simple little things that a person can do, helping a person at independent, even if it's only returning a shopping cart since you were going that way anyway, empty-handed, holding a door open instead of closing it in front of them, parking away from the entrance at stores and other places instead of in front of the door. People appreciate this small deed. Think of people with handicaps and elderly people whenever parking. Myself personally, I try to get as far away from a door as I can because I know I'm one of the elderly, but I think in better shape than some of the people. So just think of those people. And as we all know, Beverly Parker had passed away, and Beverly was a past president of the Rotary. The story behind her and her husband David coming to Manan, there was a Bev Parker from North Head who was selling fish in Ontario, handy to where they lived. And they were all the time talking about Manan. So Beverly and David happened to be in St. Andrews and decided that they should come to Manan and have a look at it. It resulted in them staying many years at Maud Hunter's cabins. And she was really involved in the Rotary. She was there for anybody that was in need. She would be taking them to doctor's appointments, do their shopping for them, and she is going to be well missed here in the community of Manan. And David was always around, and they were both a delight to have. They were kind of people that we'd like to have come to Manan and pitch in and do their thing. So it'll be a sad time when summer rolls around and we don't see her around like we usually did. Number 4 is the disclosure of conflict of interest. Number 5 is the adoption of the minutes of February the 1st, 2021.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move the adoption of the minutes of February the 1st, 2021.
You heard the motion by Councillor Cheney. Do we have a seconder?
Seconder.
Seconded by Councillor Worthen. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And additions to the agenda, I have General Operating Fund, Charlotte Emergency Medical Training, Fire Department Training is $3,450. If that's approved, it will be 12-1. 10-5 is the new Conservation Initiative, Charlotte County Multicultural Association Partnership Request, and 10-6 Clean Ocean Action Committee a request for letters of support.
Mr. Mayor, I move for the additions that you have aforementioned.
You heard the motion by Deputy Mayor Sturgeon. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Fitzsimmons. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next thing is the RCMP report. And during the COVID thing, they are not attending these meetings. I told them that we have a seat reserved for them, and but it didn't seem to make any difference, and I talked to the sergeant in St. George about it. So hopefully, very shortly, they can be coming to a meeting. Under old business, 8.1 is Universal Broadband Fund, a request for support from Rogers, open for discussion. We did have a conference call with the Rogers people a week or so ago, so.
Well, Mr. Mayor, as you mentioned, we did have a meeting with them just a week or two ago, and certainly enlightening, and I'll even go as far to say encouraging. And anyway, I think we all agree that whoever can increase our internet abilities, we're certainly all in favor of it. And I'll make a motion to give them the request for support, for letter of support.
You heard the motion by Deputy Mayor Sturgeon. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Morris. Question?
More of a comment than a question. I just think it's important to note that we have sent other letters of support for this fund. And just because we send one to Rogers doesn't mean we're choosing them over the others. We can send as many as we want as far as that goes, so.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think it's important, as Councilor Morris said, we're not playing favorites here. We just want what's best for our island. So.
Exactly.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we have the 10-minute open session. New business. 10.1, solid waste update on to grades to transfer station. Councilor Morris to update.
I'm going to turn this over to Councillor Cheney, I think, to go through the proposal. I have to give a lot of credit to him. He has put a lot of time and effort into this, along with Mr. Stewart, to get some costs together for us. So I will let Councillor Cheney walk us through that a little bit, and then if we have any questions, I think either he or I would be willing to answer them. Is that fair?
Sure. Thanks, Bonnie. So it's in your information package. Bonnie and I did meet with Bill. Thanks for being here, Bill. And we went over the different items that he elaborated on while he spoke at last month's meeting. The first item was the cardboard compactors. We want to take and get a reconditioned compactor. We got a price on that. There's a question about, I have here a 40 kVA step-up transformer to handle that, but Bill's been talking lately with Ricky and Lori Brown about bringing 600.
Yeah, NB Power.
And
We're working
NB
on it
Power.
right now. We're trying to come up with the cheapest option here.
Right. So that information there is not quite correct. We want to get we're not going to go to that 40 step up. We're going to bring in hopefully 600 volts and work that way. So the next thing was the salmon feed bag compactors. Phil mentioned and showed us the amount of bags that are up there back in the CD dump. So we're looking at two reconditioned ones at 16,000, 8,000 each. Now the power to operate those would probably be in connection with the cardboard container. We're still working on that.
Okay.
The next item is the overhead doors. And as you know, as you drive up into to the transfer station, there's a large overhead door, 15 by 13. It operates, but it needs some weather stripping, and also the rails only go up so far as when we used to have the bottom cord of the joist. And we had the joist replaced before because that trailer was to sit down deeper into the transfer station, as I've been told.
When this first started, they had smaller trailers. Dutchman had dump trailers. They were quite a bit smaller.
Yeah. And
things have changed.
Right, and putting that high hoe or that backhoe bucket up to bring those down, they had to work in between each joist, and some got broken off the bottom cords. They were then spliced, but had to be replaced. So they've been replaced by what we call a scissor truss or a cathedral truss, which allows you more headroom. So that door is going to have extended rails. And the door next to it, which would be to the north side of it, the small one, it's 8 by 9, it's kaput. So we're going to replace that with higher rails as well, and then put another door beside that on that end of the building as you approach the transfer station. There's a need for that, Bill, because of the increase.
The increase in materials leaving the island, there's so many different things. We can only load one trailer right now. We need to load 3. So if we had 2 doors, at least we have 2 in at a time.
Correct. So we've got some prices on that. Also, there is the door at the furthest end of the transfer station. That's when you go around the corner and you see the used propane tanks and whatnot. That door is obsolete now with the operations because it's not a roll in, roll out. So the idea is to take and move that trailer forward and eliminate that door. The metal paneling, which is going to be removed from the front of the building, can be used maybe at that end. So that's involved. The trash trailer, that's item D. Oh, and by the way, we do have estimates from Windor on the overhead door work.
Okay.
In that item C. In D, what we want to do is move that trailer, which is in the sunken area, more to the entrance end of the building, and that would leave about 18 feet behind it, which we want to take and fill in at the floor level to make more space for storage.
Again, for recycling, shipping, moving, doing everything we need to do. And we need more room.
Yep. So that is basically the items which is in this information. And just doing a rough estimate with getting some prices from Windor and working out some concrete and some fill prices, I come up around $60,000 plus HST. Now, the work I think that would be done, Bill would be more or less the project manager and be talking to Griffith's Concrete, who's going to put in the gravel to fill that, bring that area up to the main floor level. That's for more storage. He can work those out. He's working with MB Power.
MB Power right
Yeah.
now.
And we've got to take and find out, we're going to need 2 more trusses, those cathedral-type trusses as well. So
Mike will have to take
Park
care of
Place did that before. He's got he knows what they are.
it. I don't think it's gonna be a lot of money.
So anyway, Bill thinks I'm a little high here, but I'm saying that I'm thinking around $60,000 plus HT. Now, the money, Bonnie?
We had talked to CEO McPherson a week or 2 ago when we were in here. He believes that the gas tax fund should cover some of this because it's environmental and that sort of thing. We'd have to apply to have our gas tax agreement amended to cover it. But he suggested if council was receptive to it, he could do that while he was away, and it would cover the costs of this. Otherwise, we'd be looking at paying for it out of our regular budget or out of the reserve or something. He thought that there was I'm gonna get this wrong, I think he said 180 this year that we have in the gas tax, so there'd be more than enough to cover it. I'm not sure if we've talked about doing anything else with it, but we thought we'd put that forward as a possible place to go for funding to do this. So I think we've covered most of it, what we talked about up there. We're still waiting, as Councillor Cheney said, for some of the quotes, but I think we've got a fair idea of what we're talking about, what we're looking for expenses. So at this point, any questions?
I do have a question in regards, I thought we had replaced some with the scissor rafters a few years back. So, the ones that we replaced, are we replacing them again, or are we?
They're all fine. The only ones
So we're extending, basically?
we're gonna be moving the trailer forward in the
Yep.
building towards the north.
Yep.
They didn't replace either end. The back side is gonna be fine because we'll never use that, so we're looking at 2 or 3 on the north side.
It seemed to be a good solution, so.
It was a great solution.
Yep,
Yeah,
okay, thank you.
Yeah, it was.
Is there any thought of doing this in stages, or is this all gonna be done at the same time?
We looked at it a little bit, but because it's such a progressive thing that it makes sense to do it all at once, because to do part of it, even if we replace the doors without the compactors, or we do the compactors, we don't have the doors or anywhere to put the stuff, it just starts
Right.
piling up.
Yeah.
So it really seemed to be a one-shot deal, but we tried to think if there was some way we could kind of spread it out, but it just didn't seem to logistically
Everything is
make sense.
related to the other, basically.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So are we gonna do it or not?
So if there's no more questions, I would make a motion that we apply to the gas tax fund for the funds to do the upgrades to the transfer station as outlined.
You heard the motion by Councillor Morris. Do we have a seconder?
I would second that, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Cheney. Question?
Yes, so are we going to proceed and then hopefully obtain funds from the gas tax? Or are we gonna hold off until we hear a yay or nay on that? In other words, when can we start, I guess I'm saying?
We still have some time. We have another 2 or 3 weeks of preliminaries here, if you guys wanna wait till the next meeting to decide that.
Well, I think that we should apply, but I'd like to know that if we,
Whether we're gonna go ahead, whether we're
yeah, if
gonna
we're
go
gonna go
or
ahead
not.
with, if we don't get those funds for some odd reason, do we still wanna proceed with the project?
But once again, we could do that next month if we want to, so.
So are we sure
I
we're
think
close
Rob,
enough?
When Rob's here, he can apply and get things done fairly quickly,
Yeah.
I think.
I think Rob can apply right from where he is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he can.
So do we have the number that we need to apply for, like the amount? Like, are we still waiting for some
Kirk,
estimates or?
we're waiting for one estimate on the electricals, the one thing we have held
Right.
up. I would suggest if we use Kirk's number that's here, I think he's gone a little high, but I would even say we apply for, we'll say 75 plus HST, and if we don't use it all, then we've got a little bit of extra
Sure.
to come and go on, if that makes sense.
And we can do a lot of this ourselves, too.
Councillor Cheney's doing it right. I'd much rather be high than I would be low.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
So do I need to amend my motion to put the amount in? Or am I okay?
No, I
with
think
just
you're
applying?
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you all.
UMND report, Deputy Mayor Wayne Sturgeon.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On February the 2nd we had a meeting, a zone meeting with UMNB, and of course it was virtual because we can't get together, and we had a special speaker that evening. We had the acting Deputy Minister of Local Government and Local Government Reform, Mr. Ryan Donahue, and he was basically updating us on where we were on going on municipal reform. And of course, he was looking for input as well and looking for questions. And what he had introduced was that municipal reform is not going to be an overnight thing, but it's going to move quickly. But it's going to be done basically in 3 phases. And currently we're in phase 1, in which the Department of Local Government is forming committees and also consulting with municipal associations, administrative associations, and also reaching out to community leaders as well. And phase 2 is going to be starting very shortly. It is in the month of March, there's going to be released what they call a green paper. And it's important to notice that this green paper is not a policy paper. It's a discussion paper, basically on what has been brought in so far in these discussions, and where the government is, what they know about it, so anyway, like I said, this will be released in the month of March, and it's very important that they're looking for input, because in phase 3, there's gonna be a white paper, which is gonna be your policy paper, which is what they're going to do. And that's gonna be released in September. So I asked Ryan Donaghy, the acting deputy minister, I said, realistically, you're not going to be taking input till August the 31st and then releasing something the next day. I mean, what's the realistic are we looking at? And he said, well, realistically, Wayne, we're looking at, we'll be taking information probably till about the end of June. Then we're going to be taking what we got, and then we'll be coming out, working towards the white paper in September. So as a result of that, what we have decided as a zone, Zone 4, which is basically Charlotte County, is that we're going to meet, and everybody who's elected official, of course, welcome to attend, a virtual meeting, hopefully maybe in person, hard to say, but anyway, on April the 13th. And that is for the current members of council. But because of the elections that's going to be held in early May, we want to hear from the new council members as well. So allowing for some time for them to be sworn in, getting some up to speed on some things. We're looking around mid-June for the new council members so that we can have things into the, as a zone. Of course, municipality can put forth information and input as well, but as a zone before the end of June. So. And anyway, Mr. Mayor, I guess that's what I have to report, and if anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to take them, of course.
I was in on a conference call with the minister and our MLA and Mayor of St. George and the Mayor of Blacks Harbor. And on a lighter thing, the Minister of Local Government is the guy that closed our liquor store.
Mm-hmm.
So I had been on the conference call and I pushed the wrong button and I was out, and then I got back on and the question was said, hey, Dennis, you know this is the guy that closed the liquor store on Grand Manan? I said, yeah, I know it. I'll never forgive him for it. Took a lot of good paying jobs away from us. If he uses the municipality of Grand Manan good, I may forget it some.
Mm.
So it was a good meeting. We had some discussions of, and the big discussion that we had too was Campobello Ferry. So everybody there supported the Campobello Ferry. So hopefully that can, so in the conversation was, how long have you been mayor? I said, in 30 years in municipal government. So I had texted our MLA the next morning, thanking her for the kind words that she had to say about me, and she said the meeting after that, the minister referred to the mayor of Grand Manan and how long he had served and his dedication to the community. So it was good. He knows how everybody in Charlotte County feels.
If I may just close, Mr. Mayor, if you're done, is that this is going to be the biggest thing that hit municipalities and local governments and districts in 60 years. And so it's very imperative that we partake. And, you know, as a friend, a guy told me one time, he said, you know, the world is run by those who show up. So it's imperative that we participate and to make sure that the island view is perpetuated to the front. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
The Rural Plan 10-3, proposal from Dillon Consulting, Deputy Mayor Sturgeon to discuss.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did have a meeting with Dillon Consulting in October, I believe it was, somewhere along that line, mid-October. And to be honest with you, I thought the meeting went better than what I expected, to be honest with you. And one of the things I was probably the most pleased about the meeting was that how oftentimes we, things are introduced and then you find out that, well, they kind of could maybe possibly conflict with something else, So Dillon Consulting, there's a couple of things they really specialize in. And one is that they try to see that all your laws actually line up and mesh and work well together. And the other thing was that is, this council, I'm very pleased to say, I believe, very much wants public input. And we've been at a great challenge about that in the past year. And these folks specialize in getting that input so that everybody has a chance to have a say. And anyway, so we have budgeted, I believe it was $50,000 for them to update our rural plan and make sure that it all meshes in with other things we got on the go as well. And we believe that there's other funding that we could possibly get from as well, and Dillon Consulting is going to work on our behalf to get a hold of this funding. So anyway, as far as the rest of it, the details, you all have it set before you, the information. If you're anything like me, it's been a while, so anyway, I just kind of like to have council's input where we go from here.
I think it has been a while, and I think the meeting went good with them, but in reality, it was only a half-an-hour meeting. We had
Over
lunch.
dinner, yes, it was, yeah.
So, I mean, I personally my thoughts are is to get together with them again. Talk to them, talk things over. We've got that paper, their outline of what they're gonna do and everything.
Mhm.
And there's some questions in there and this and that, and, I mean, it all looks good, but I think it'd be nice to talk to them again, and, I mean, like I say, we only have had a very little chance to really meet them, and it'd be nice to see some of the stuff that they have done, maybe, just.
Well, they're very experienced in that.
I don't
We
do
all
it.
agree.
I don't do it, but
Yeah.
The updating the royal plan is something that has to be done.
It has to be done, absolutely.
absolutely, I don't have a problem with
Yeah.
that, just,
I think it's also important to note from what and of course I did a little homework on it this afternoon to make sure I remember as much as I can. Whatever they come up with ain't necessarily written in stone, shall we say. So, we do have a chance for input and such there. So, anyway.
and the rural plan isn't all that they're gonna do for us, is it?
There was a meshing of our other
Right.
bylaws, like zoning bylaws and
Right.
things like that, right? So, and that's the whole point, is to make sure that everything is copacetic.
Right.
That it works well. So,
I had an email exchange with them in the fall leading up to the budget time, particularly about some of their wording around marine spatial planning and some of those things.
yeah.
I feel somewhat better about it, but I would still like to sit down with them again before we start down that road with them, just to make sure that we're all on the same page about what they mean by that is, I think, different than what I think it means.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that we're not overstepping some other areas and jurisdictions that maybe is going to create more problems down the road. I'm thinking particularly some of their things were in the intertidal zone, which I'm not sure the village has control over,
Mhm.
which I think is just going to end up opening up more questions than what we maybe should. And marine spatial planning has a whole other meaning in the DFO world that I think is a little bit scary, and as long as we're keeping the two separated, I think it's a good thing. But I would like to just talk to them, whether it's here at a meeting or on the phone again, before we sign off and send them forth on our behalf.
Of course, we'd like to move along as quickly as possible on this
Now,
file.
be careful how you use that word, we. There's
We?
two that would like to slow down a little bit, so it's not all we.
I think we all want to move as soon as possible, but we want to make sure it's a positive step.
Oh, if they
As-
could meet tomorrow, that'd
Yeah.
be great,
Yeah,
I don't mind,
yeah. Yeah.
but
so-
I'd like to have a talk, and I got some of the same concerns that Bonnie has there, but some of the stuff that was on there, so.
So they've asked for, the contract is for $50,000. Our solicitor, Joel has looked it over.
Mhm.
But then they said, when and if we are successful in securing additional funding, we will submit a formal scope change for the additional fees. I just don't know what all that, that's a little vague to me right now.
If they can apply, get $30,000, we pay 20.
And then they're gonna do additional work.
No, I don't know, it was 50,000 to do it.
The way I understood it, maybe I misunderstood, is that some of the grants will cover specific items that they have in their contract. So if they can get a grant for 30,000, they'll take whatever those items are out of their proposal to us, and we'll pay for the 20 that's left that's not covered by the grant.
Okay.
Does that make,
But it did say something about if they didn't get those grants, then some of the scope wouldn't be as big.
yeah.
Well, the more time they put in, of course, the
Yep.
more
Oh,
it's gonna
yeah.
cost.
Oh,
I mean, that's
yeah.
just the way of it.
Yep.
But it looks like the rural plan, they've highlighted a few things. The rural plan is definitely one thing would be in the 50,000.
Yes.
They were going to integrate that, like you say, Councillor Sturgeon, with building bylaws
Yeah.
and Village of Grand Manan subdivision bylaw.
Yep.
So it seems to me those are in
And
the
you'll
50
also-
regardless.
Yeah, and you'll also notice there too, towards the end, it says, the last line basically is, and whatever else is required, so, because, so, anyway.
That's why I think there's still some questions.
So if we can sit down with them before the next council meeting, we could be prepared to,
So
To vote on it
what
at
you're
that
saying is you would like to table this decision until the next council meeting?
I would, and I would also like to have a meeting with Dillon Consulting in the
But that's what
meantime.
I say.
Yes.
So basically, the motion would be the table until after we meet with them, hopefully by the next council meeting then?
Yes,
Okay.
that would be my motion.
No.
Okay.
You heard the motion by Councillor Morse. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So, airport update. We'll go back to the wellness center, and our application was in for that. And we had thought an extension onto the airport of another 3,000 feet. So I had some conversations with the Premier on this, and he said you won't get both. If you total it up, you're talking $25 million, and that's not gonna happen. What are your priorities? Well, I attended a few meetings with Paul Sonnenberg, Mark Ingersoll, and John Williamson, and it was no trouble to tell that our priority had to be the airport. And this was a motion that was passed by council. And it was going with the existing length, repaving and widening 25 feet. Well, if you go to widen 25 feet, your lights have got to be moved and your fence has got to be removed. So we had a meeting, Rob and I and Mark, with the Sonnenbergs, Peter, Paul, and Melanie. And Paul come up with the idea of why widen? Take that 24 feet that you're putting on the side and put it on the end, and that'll give you another 1,000 feet on your runway. So after discussions and going to Brunswick, and that was the word that was passed along to the Premier, that our priority is the airport at this time. I couldn't believe that the airport was in as bad a shape as it was until I walked it 3 or 4 times with Paul and John Williamson. And Paul mentioned to me the other night in the Independent, it's getting bad at the end of the runway. The big thing is you got the white and the black, and they draw the sun different, and one expands more than the other. So, Rob had forwarded that. I don't want to get into prices here now because
Of course,
if you
yes.
go to tender,
Yes, of
people
course.
will know. But if you want to come to me afterwards, or I'll tell you afterwards what it was. So it has gone in. We've been pretty well told that the federal government will pay 60%, the province will pay 30, and we'll be 33. We'll be left with 7%. So the payment styles would be roughly what it would have been that council approved for the wellness center. People have asked me, is this the end of the wellness center? And I said, it'll be something for the next council. In my mind, it'll go. It'll be back on the not for discussion. It will be back to construct the wellness center. So, that's an update on what there was for the airport.
Mr. Mayor, so when you talked about, so I like the idea of an additional 1,000 feet. I mean, so is that just an idea or is that what we're looking to do, I guess?
Well,
that's my
that was
question.
the proposal that went into the
Well, that's what I wanted to know,
Yeah.
so, okay, good. No, I like that.
The drilling, the testing, and all that has already been done because we were planning on increasing the length, and Brunswick Engineering had done the drilling, so everything is there.
Sure, cool, yeah.
They,
No, I think it's a good idea personally, but,
well, it's gotta be when you look at the number of medevacs that's out of here.
no, but like the additional 1,000 feet
yeah.
there, I mean, that's good.
Well, Paul was the one that come up with that, and it, just the minute we heard it, said, hey, that's great.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it does,
We don't have to move the lights or the fence, and
that's just it.
so, 10-5 is the new Conversations Initiative, Charlotte County Multicultural Association Partnership Request.
From what I can gather, Mr. Mayor, maybe somebody picked out something more than I have, but they're not looking for any money per se, just looking for participation. Am I correct on that? Yeah.
And I think to put our logo on their poster or something, aren't they, as they go out to do, it's a conversation on, just looking at this there, around demographics and labor market realities in New Brunswick. It's a new virtual conversation 2.0. I've got the right one, don't I?
You know, Mr. Mayor, it's, I find it interesting that, into the UMB zone meetings again, how things have changed in in these last 4 years. And one of the things that has changed in the last 2 years, and especially the past year with this COVID world that we're in now, people are moving into Charlotte County. And people are actually excited about Charlotte County, believe it or not. And it's not just a Charlotte County thing. I mean, I talk to people throughout the province, and they tell me the same thing, so. And of course, with that is people that we're usually not used to seeing around, shall we say. So, anyway, so it's, maybe it's best that we be prepared for new folks. And we have some new folks on the island too, I understand, Mr. Mayor, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think any conversation around the labor market is one that's particularly interesting. So, I mean, I would make a motion that we support their virtual tour 2.0.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
So that was a motion by Councillor Moore, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sturgeon. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I was into home hardware and met the 4 workers that are there, presented them with a Graham and Ann pin and welcomed them to the island. The next time I went in, every time they seen me, they were waving.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt for them. They were up at John Beach's campground. We had some cold weather there for a while. So they seem to be, I was down by the cache and I heard someone for heavy lifting. All four came to help.
Yep.
So that's quite a thing. And it just disappoints me that there's some people around here that have quite a bit to say and don't want them here. But everybody's welcome to live where they want to live. They have just as much right as you and I do. And they want to work. If they didn't, they wouldn't be here.
That's right.
Okay, then, 10-6, Clean Ocean Action Committee, a request for a letter of support. Councillor Morse.
Yes. I will say I've not heard about this in my other job, that the moratorium is coming up, but I suppose the time has passed more than I realize that it has. Obviously, I think that, while we're removed from George's Bank, anytime there's that potential for drilling, there are concerns about the ocean ecosystem. So I think in principle, it would make sense to send a letter to the Clean Ocean Action Committee supporting the continuation of the moratorium on drilling on George's Bank.
You heard the motion by Councillor Morse. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Cheney. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 11, Recreation Director's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll give you the Coles Notes version here. So we're getting down to the last 4 weeks for the arena with some good news of yellow on the horizon. We're scrambling to try to finish up the season on a positive note. Assuming we get back to yellow on midnight on March the 7th, we will, that'll roughly give our minor hockey kids about 3 weeks to try to throw together and play a very quick round robin format type of schedule. This will also allow us to get our adult recreation leagues back in as well, to get to play the last few weeks so they can finish off on a good note also. Last month I gave a little brief story on the current status of the St. Martin's Arena. We feel we're connected with St. Martin's because we share the same refrigeration system, and they had reached out because they're having some issues the same as we did. We received some good news that they are proceeding with their upgrades, the same as that we had. I actually had a visit from some representatives from St. Martin's as well as Charlotte County Refrigeration on Wednesday. They were here and took a lot of notes and a lot of pictures of the system that we have, measured every inch of pipe and every valve and piece of equipment that we've got out there so they can start to rebuild theirs. They're hoping to do so this week to try to salvage their season as well. The return to yellow, hopefully, I say return, hopefully on Monday, March 8th, we'll also be able to open the community center back up to our yellow phase of operation. This will allow more users for the fitness center, as well as to reopen the regular scheduled users like the pickleball to resume. The status of the community gym at the school is still off limits, so we've had a lot of inquiries about that, so we will try to accommodate as much of the basketball program as we can here. At the last meeting, Councillor Morris had asked if there's any way we could try to resume the walking program. So I did meet with the management of the club the next day, and they agreed to allow that to happen. I think we've come up with a really good plan to try to safely reopen that to the walkers, especially where it's a shared space. Up till this point, all of our program that we've been doing in the community center has been after hours. So this is the first thing that we've done kind of at the same time while the club is in operation. but again, we rely on the girls that we've got hired to take on some of those responsibility with welcoming the walkers, doing the screening questions, doing the contact tracing information, cleaning and sanitizing after they're done, different things like that. So we did reopen on February the 15th for the walking program. It's offered Mondays through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. We've had some pretty good turnout so far. Like I said, the girls are doing a great job looking after that. And I should say that those girls, I mean, we have Tanisha and Heather and Sophia. Without those three girls, we wouldn't be able to do what we've been doing. And they're doing a fantastic job keeping up with all the rules and enforcing all the rules and doing all the cleaning and all the contact tracing information. We've had a lot of positive responses back from that, so we just want to thank them for all that they do. With that, we're able to offer about 75 hours a week of programming in the community center that we normally wouldn't be able to do. The skate park, I met with Cooper and his mother last week. Brought them in and just wanted to kind of give Cooper a rundown of what happened after the letter, just to kind of keep him up to date. So I told him about council receiving the letter, reading the letter. He got the letter back, and then at that point, council had requested the recreation department to go out and to get some ideas about the skate park, some figures, whether or not some of the existing equipment we had was usable. Brought that back and reported at the next council meeting. Since then, he got his picture in the paper with a little story, and from that, that got some outside recognition for some possible funding streams, as well as it got some attention from some locals as well. So after all that was said and done, the most recent thing was after the last meeting, council had requested that I put in the application to RDC for potential funding. So I did put the application in, like I said, to RDC from the Community Development Fund, requesting 50% of the total project cost. I did that roughly 3 weeks ago, and roughly 2 weeks ago I had a very quick call back from them, and the conversation was very positive. The first thing they said was there any way you could get this project complete before March 31st? March 31st being the province's year end, they had some money left over in that fund. I wanted to know if it was possible. Unfortunately, because of it just wasn't possible. They accepted that and they said no problem at all. We just had to ask the question. So we will put this application on the top of the pile to look at very early in April. So we discussed the application, and the gentleman that I spoke to, I'm horrible with names, and it was very, very positive. He said, from the time that he's been there, if any application that he's seen go across his desk that got approved, ours would be top on the list. It met all the criteria with the community involvement, with the at-risk youth, and so it was very good. So, with that, if we were able to receive 50% funding from RDC, their 50% would be roughly $43,000. If we get the $8,000 from the outside funding source of the Protestant Orphanage Fund, and I also talked to Cooper and his mother about, in Cooper's letter, he mentioned that him and his friends wouldn't mind doing some fundraising. So I told Cooper that council liked that idea. They thought it would help him and his friends take a little bit of ownership for the facility if it was put in, help maintain it, keep it clean, look after things like that. So if it went through, we would like to see them fundraise up to $10,000 to put towards the project. So with the total project, if we got the money from RDC, the Protestant Orphanage, if the community fundraised $10,000, we're looking for the village to come up with approximately up to $25,000 plus cover the HST on the money. I say that because for recreation, the village gets 100% of the HST back. So it's just money in money.
Yeah.
So one last thing I had was on the agenda, it has for the bills to be paid. I just thought I'd throw this out there to save some questions. There's an invoice in there for $7,762.50 from JIL Engineering for playground equipment. This is completely separate from Seal Cove. This is a piece of this is 50% deposit on a piece of equipment that I ordered to put in Victoria Park and Grand Harbor. So that's all I have for my report. If anyone has any questions about any of that in the skate park.
It's fantastic to hear that we're drawing some good attention on this. And if I may say so, I like to think it'll be a good positive thing for Cooper and his friends to learn as well, that they can make a difference, you know?
Well, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, with that, I think a motion should be made to contribute $25,000 to this project, contingent, of course, that we get the money from RDC and $8,000 from the orphanage fund, and of course the fundraising from Cooper and his friends as well.
I think we can do that at the next meeting.
We could do that? Okay, very good, thank you.
Have a little more information by that time.
Yep, okay.
Approval to pay the following invoices. Bush recycling containers, $5,931.13. This is from the general operating fund. Desanya Surveys Limited, Survey Seal Cove Playground, $3,450. Dutchman Contracting, Castelia Ball Diamond Repairs, $46,000. JIL Engineering Construction, 50% deposit for Grand Harbor Park equipment, $7,762.50. And Charlotte County Medical Training Fire Department, $3,450.
I would move to pay the aforementioned invoices from the general operating fund.
You heard the motion by Councillor Morse. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Cheney. Question?
Yeah, I had just a question, Chris, on the JL Engineering, the Grand Harbor Victoria Park, 50% deposit.
Yep.
So that may be a $15,000 piece of equipment?
Yes.
What is that for $15,000? Portable car?
No, it's to replace one of the climbing structures.
Okay.
So it's a climbing structure with an extension arm that comes off, so the kids be able to kind of do hand over hand. I can show you a picture of it.
Yeah.
Might be able to explain it better.
Okay.
But I've got, there's 15 spots in the rec budget for playground upgrades, so this is what we're selling.
Popular piece of equipment?
The piece we're taking out, I think it's probably been there since most of it were kids. It was time 10 years ago, so now it's officially time for it to go. So.
Thank you.
And, Mr. Mayor, for the Castelia wall repairs, that's taxes in 46 grand, I assume? Yeah,
Yes, it is.
okay, thank you.
There's some more to come in on that.
Okay,
Rob approved it.
good.
Looks good up there.
Good. No,
If
I've had
if
one
it
or two
hadn't
comments
gone
on
in, you would have lost your corner.
it. Mhm.
Yep.
So anyway. All those, no more questions? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Our next regular council meeting is here at the Grand Manan Community Center on Monday, April the 12th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. And I'd like to go along with Chris thanking the workers that's kept this place busy. Denisha is bubbling. Very good personality for meeting people.
Yep.
So, Councillor Morse,
Move to adjourn.
you heard the motion by Councillor Morse. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Sturgeon.